So kind of the latest bit of fear-mongering about the COVID-19 pandemic is about this Lambda variant. We've covered the Delta variant. Yeah, it's pretty much covered by vaccines, so we really should look at this Lambda variant too. So I'm just going to kind of reference this article covering how the Lambda variant is affected by the vaccine-elicited antibodies and the convalescent serum. Just as a disclaimer, this has not yet been peer-reviewed, but this is linked to from the CDC's library in their COVID-19 Science Update, edition number 98, so it might be interesting to go and see when this is peer-reviewed, what, if anything, changed, but mostly it should be good, and if it's good enough to be posted by the CDC, I think it's good enough for our purposes, and again, this is something that people should be talking about that no one is, because the fear-mongering is all about, oh, these new variants are going to blow right through the vaccines, and there's no way we can have herd immunity, and yeah, that generally isn't how it goes. You know, the variants don't change all that much, and as I've covered in previous videos, it's not just the virus that's evolving, it's your immune cells that are evolving too, so if you've been immune for a while, then your body should have created variants of the antibodies as well, and by chance some of those should match these new variants, so a lot of it just depends on how long you've been immune, and also as we've seen, the natural immunity pretty much works the same as the vaccine immunity, so they don't talk about the natural immunity in this paper, but it still should pretty much be the same. The only difference is people have been getting COVID for longer than the vaccine's been out, so if you had COVID a year ago, or even 6 months ago, then you should have much better protection for these new variants than someone who was vaccinated just a few weeks ago. And again, if you've both had COVID and have the vaccine, what they call hybrid immunity, that should put you in the best possible position with all of this. So I'm not going to do the thing where I scroll through this and go through it all in detail, because pretty much all of it, except for the abstract and the conclusions, is just a bunch of technical stuff, mostly about mutations on the spike protein and things like that. And so really, as far as just what ordinary people need to understand, I think it's just the basic summary. And so what they did was they looked at the spike protein on the Lambda variant, and they looked at both the infectivity and the susceptibility, and how that's going to work with both the vaccine-elicited antibodies and the convalescent sera, which in my opinion does not get the attention that it deserves, because if you've got COVID and if you get it early enough, the monoclonal antibody therapy will actually pretty much knock that out. From the reports I've seen, it knocks it out in a couple of days. You know, that would have been much better than suffering through it for a couple of months like I had to. And I wasn't even seriously sick. You know, there was never any danger of me being hospitalized or anything, so yeah, if it was a question of a shortage, then give it to people who are much higher risk than I am. But if that stuff is available far and wide, and you get COVID, that sounds like a much better option than just suffering through it for months. But they looked at it, and they found that viruses with the Lambda spike had higher infectivity and was neutralized by convalescent sera and vaccine-elicited antibodies, with a relatively minor 2.3 to 3.3-fold decrease in titer on average. And I haven't heard anything that politicians or the news media are going to say about this, if indeed they even say anything about it at all, but one of the things they like to do is, you know, pull these little statistics out of it and say, oh, see, you're 3 times as likely, it's going to be 3 times as bad, 2.3 to 3.3 times as bad. That's not what it means. We'll get into some of the numbers a little bit. Again, I'm not really going to go over this in detail, but suffice it to say this was a very minor decrease. And also the virus was neutralized by the Regeneron therapeutic monoclonal antibody cocktail with no loss of titer. The results suggest that vaccines in current use will remain protective against the Lambda variant, and that monoclonal antibody therapy will remain effective. And if you read down into the discussion section, they talk about the spike protein for the Lambda variants having a partial resistance to the neutralization by the vaccine-elicited antibodies, but they do point out that this 3-fold decrease in neutralizing titer against the variant is not likely to cause a significant loss of protection against infection, as the average neutralization titer is about 1 in 600. So, 3-fold versus 1 in 600, yeah, that's not much of a decrease, and they say a titer that is above that in the sera of individuals who recovered from infection. Most of them were good. A small fraction of vaccinated individuals had serum antibody titers less than average, but whether this will lead to reduced protection from variant infection will need to be determined in epidemiological studies. So it's not clear that even that reduction in those few individuals will actually make a difference. And if it does, it's only going to be for that small fraction of individuals. So they conclude that these mutations on the Lambda variant spike protein caused a partial resistance to vaccine-elicited serum and Regeneron monoclonal antibodies. While our findings suggest that current vaccines will provide protection against variants identified to date, the results do not preclude the possibility that novel variants will emerge that are more resistant to current vaccines. The findings highlight the importance of widespread adoption of vaccination, which will protect individuals from disease, decrease virus spread, and slow the emergence of novel variants. And that is absolutely not what we're being told, is it? We're being told kind of the opposite. Oh no, the vaccines are not going to work. They're going to blow right through. And it's like, geez, I mean, this whole experience. Yes, we've had to deal with the normal anti-vax idiots and all of their misinformation. We've also had to deal with the idiots from the other side. Politicians in the news media talking about all these new variants. I've said this before, I'll say it again. When you think about a mutation, you shouldn't think about superpowers like X-Men. You should think typo. Because that's what it is. At some point, when a SARS-CoV-2 virus got duplicated, a mistake was made. Happens all the time. Sometimes, a mistake is made that makes it spread around a little better, and that's where these variants come from. But that doesn't mean we're all gonna die. We know how this thing generally goes, not only with coronaviruses, but also other diseases like cholera. Generally what happens is, you get a strain that's a lot more transmissible, but it's a lot less virulent, and those are two things that go together. Because again, I pointed this out at the very beginning, the virus doesn't want to kill you. That's where it lives. It wants you to be alive, and it wants you to be healthy enough to be up and walking around enough that you'd pass on the virus to other people. So the ones that are going to survive the best are the ones that do the least amount of harm to you. And that's why pretty much every time this happens, the coronavirus just ends up evolving into yet another cold virus. And that's probably what's going to happen with SARS-CoV-2. They've been predicting that from the beginning. So, I don't know. I would really like to think that I wasn't shouting into the wind on this. That I'm not the only one pointing this out. There have to be other people out there reading the scientific literature and pointing this out. If any of you know about them, please post it in the comments, because it kind of gets frustrating with like, am I the only one saying that? I can't be the only one saying this. Those voices are clearly being drowned out by the politicians in the news media, but they must be there. So if you know of any, please post them in the comments. Until then, thank you so much for watching. Comments for the comment god, shares for the share throne. Please hit like, subscribe, and the bell. And go to donate.bogosity.tv to keep me doing what I do, or go over to odyssey.com and subscribe to me there and all sorts of other great channels, where you and I both will earn some cryptocurrency, and you can use them to leave a tip or support a video, boost it up in the rankings, or share it out yourself. Thank you very much. Until next time, stay strong and be free.